You've been there, right? We all have. You're trapped. On one side, you're just drowning in data, analyzing everything into the ground. And on the other, there's this cliff, this urge to just make a rash, impulsive decision and get it over with. But what if that's a false choice? What if there's a third way? A way to find a real clarity when everything's on the line? Well, let's kick things off with a story that nails this problem perfectly. Okay, picture this. The date is June 28th, 1762. A woman who the world will soon know as Catherine the Great just found out her husband, who happens to be the Emperor of Russia, is literally minutes away from having her arrested. In a single moment, her entire life and honestly, the future of an empire is hanging by a thread. So this is her choice. Does she zoom all the way in, trying to map out every single person, every possible risk? Or does she just grab the hammer, swing for the fences, and deal with the fallout later? And look, this isn't just some dusty old history problem. It's a problem you and I face all the time. To really get what Catherine's up against, we need to talk about the two broken tools that most of us grab when we're under pressure. We think they're helping, but, well, they might just be the very things that are destroying our ability to see clearly. You know, it reminds me of this warning from the philosopher Nietzsche. He said that when you fight monsters, you risk becoming one. Now, he wasn't talking about becoming evil. He was talking about obsession. You get so fixated, so deep in the weeds of a problem that you completely lose the one thing you need to solve it: perspective. And that obsession, it creates our two broken tools. First up, you've got the magnifying glass. This is when you just collect more data, you talk to more people, you build another spreadsheet. You feel like you're being super thorough, but really you're just staring at brushstrokes and you have no idea what the painting even looks like. Then there's the hammer. You're all about action. You're decisive, you make the call, boom. But you know the saying, when all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. You end up smashing all the important details. And here's the crazy part, the trick they play on our brains. The magnifying glass feels productive because, hey, you're gathering info. The hammer feels productive because you're taking action. But what's really going on underneath it all, it's just fear. Both are just defense mechanisms against the terror of uncertainty. So if the tools themselves are the trap, then what's the way out? Well, it starts by asking a totally different question, a question most of us never even consider. It's not about the decision, it's about where you are when you're making it. So let's just flip this whole thing on its head for a second. What if your ability to make a great call has less to do with how you analyze it and everything to do with the state you're in before you even start thinking? And you know what? There's a perfect analogy for this from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you're on the mats, there is zero confusion. You feel it in your bones. You know instantly if you are controlling the situation or if you're just trying to survive. Business and life are exactly the same, we just don't always notice the signals. So the absolute key is to figure out your state. Are you in defense mode? This is all about survival. You're absorbing pressure, you're reacting, you're just trying to put out the fires burning right in front of you. Or are you in offense mode? This is about building for the future. You're the one creating pressure, you're investing in growth, you're dictating the pace of the game. Okay, so once you know your state, offense or defense, then you can pick the right strategy. And this is where it gets a little weird, a little counterintuitive, but it's also incredibly powerful. This is the playbook for finding the right distance. I mean, think about it. When your back's against the wall and chaos is erupting, what does every single instinct in your body scream at you to do? Get closer, focus harder, fix everything at once. It makes perfect sense. And it's completely, totally wrong. In fact, getting closer when you're on defense is the fastest way to get tunnel vision and completely miss the one thing that actually matters. This is one of my all-time favorite analogies for this. In a cockpit, when all the alarms are blaring, a pilot isn't trained to fix the first blinking light they see. No, they're taught to step back, to keep control, and to figure out the one or two things that will actually crash the plane. They fly the plane first. And that simple idea gives us our playbook. If you're on defense, in survival mode, you have to force yourself to step back and ask, what are the two or three things that will absolutely, positively sink me? You focus on those, and you ruthlessly ignore everything else. Now, if you're on offense, you also step back first, but you're looking for something else. You're looking for patterns, for opportunities, for leverage. And once you spot a path, then you get in close to make sure it's real before you go all in. So let's bring it all back to Catherine the Great. She wasn't on offense, right? She was on defense for her life. So she didn't map out every single variable with a magnifying glass. No. She stepped back. She saw the one thing the entire coup hinged on, the loyalty of the palace guards. She got close to verify it by writing out to them herself, and once she had it, she acted. She flew the plane. Okay, this is all great in theory, but how do we actually use this stuff? Well, here is a super simple 60-second reset you can use before any big decision to make sure you're finding the right distance. It's literally just 4 questions. First, what am I actually afraid of? Be honest. Is it being wrong? Looking dumb? Name the fear. 2, what state am I in? Am I just trying to survive the week, or am I building for next year? 3, is my tool a crutch? Am I analyzing just to put off making a choice, or am I rushing to act so I don't have to think? And finally, 4, what would the right distance see? And let's be crystal clear on this. The point of this whole process isn't to find the magical, risk-free answer. That's a fantasy. It doesn't exist. The goal is to find a way to act, to move forward effectively, even when you don't have all the answers. So the next time you feel yourself reaching for that magnifying glass or that hammer, just pause for a second and ask yourself this. What feeling am I trying to run away from? 9 times out of 10, it's just the simple, raw discomfort of not knowing. And just seeing that, that's half the battle right there. All right, so here's a little homework for you. If you're a magnifying glass person, you know who you are, I want you to stop researching the best way to, and just pick one decision you're stuck on. Give yourself a deadline. Decide by Friday. Done. And if you're a hammer person, your job is to slow down. Pick a decision you're about to make, and before you do anything, force yourself to write down 3 ways it could totally blow up in your face. Because in the end, it really all comes down to this one question. Every single time you're under pressure, you're making a choice. Are you going to let fear dictate your perspective, either pulling you way too close or pushing you to act way too fast? Or are you going to be the one to consciously choose your distance, to find your own clarity, and then make your move? The choice is always yours.